Welcome to the 501st episode of the Jami Dulaney Plant-Based Wellness Podcast. My name is Jami Dulaney, and I'm your host. I'm a plant-based cardiologist and endurance athlete living in Southwest Florida. Welcome and thanks for listening. Well, today I have an endurance athlete that is a lifelong Floridian. He is a retired school teacher. He is the director of A1 Ultra events, puts on races now along with his wife. And most recently, he did something that he didn't expect that he was going to do. And that is, over the past year, he has attempted a 240-mile race and most recently completed a 200-mile race across the state of Florida. I met Andy because he is the director of the Long Haul 100 race that I ran last year. And ironically, back in the around 2018, 2019 era, Andy actually ran his own race and injured himself not that much unlike me, and took a year off. And when he had an interview with another podcaster in 2019 at the age of 59, he was telling them about his exit strategy and his exit story from doing long distance running. Maybe he would run marathons and he would be happy with that, maybe 50K, but for the most part, he was very excited to be a race director and that his long distance running might very well be behind him. He has been running his entire adult life and has been quite successful, winning his age group, doing some sub 24-hour 100s. He's done over 100 marathons, and I think he told me somewhere around 50 100s. He has certainly had his ups and downs, having suffered, running injuries, having plantar fasciitis that sidelined him for quite some time. And he also had a mini stroke that also sidelined him that he has come back from. So he decided to take on some of these longer distance races this year, hired a coach, started training with intent as opposed to so-called phoning it in. Lost 40 pounds, became mainly plant-based, and has not only exceeded his expectations, but broken records that he didn't think he could break, and now is looking forward to doing more long-distance races and is feeling great about it. Back in 2019, Andy talked about doing a podcast called it At Your Age, because at 59, somebody said at his age he shouldn't be running those races. And a lot of ultra runners, when they talk about, and a lot of runners, talk about at your age, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. You have a bad heart, you have bad knees, or it'll cause bad heart, bad knees, and you shouldn't exercise that much. And Andy's all about showing the other side of this, that his health is much improved by changing his diet, losing some weight, and training with intensity. So it is my pleasure to have Andy tell his story this evening, and hopefully it will inspire you to do things that maybe you thought at your age it was too late to do. Without further ado, here is Andy Croom Mathews. Tonight, as promised, I am honored to have Andy, in parentheses, Croom Mathews on the podcast. Andy is the race director of A1 Ultra events, but I met Andy through the Long Haul 100, and as many of you listened, last year was my first 100 at the Long Haul, and I was able to cross the finish line and meet Andy after 100 miles and I think 31 hours and 5 minutes. And it was a pleasure to see him. And it was a great experience, except for the part when he lied and said that you can run this course in running road shoes. Then
Yes.
on the morning of the race, he said there was a little bit of water out there. And of course, I didn't believe that either. Nevertheless, the stories go on. But anyway, welcome, Andy.
Well, thank you for having me, Jamie. I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
One of the reasons why I wanted to have you is congratulations. You just completed a 200-mile race across Florida, and you can tell us a little bit about that. And you were not that many months off of another attempt at a 200 Cocodona. So you're quite the runner as well as the race director at 61, 62 years young, maybe something like
63.
63. Look at that,
I
63.
am almost 13 months to the day older than my host here.
Ultra sign up. Yep, can't hide
You
anything.
got yes, it gets hard to hide things from RDs, yes.
So, I actually have stalked you quite a bit as far as for the podcast, and I'm just going to go back to, again, you've been an avid runner for a long, long time, and I want to talk about some of those things. But the podcast that and I don't know how well you remember it, but it's a podcast from the something anthropology, 2019.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be fun to talk about some of the things you said back then.
Yeah, that was Mark Lane Holbert, the running anthropologist.
Yes.
Just an absolutely fine gentleman. Really, really respect him and enjoy him.
So just, so you're a running guy. I think, well, just tell us a little bit. You've run over 100 marathons and then you step foot onto the trails. Tell us a little bit about how that went.
Well, I started my first marathon was in 1992, which I guess is about 32, 33 years ago.
It's 32 years, just same
Yeah.
age as my daughter.
Yeah, I started small with the New York Marathon, New York City Marathon, and I really thought I was going to be one and done. Um, and somebody was asking me about how you signed up for the marathon back then, and it was all done via paper. You had to submit an application to get an application, and you had to be postmarked on a certain day. But anyway, I jumped through their hoops and ran that, and thought I would be one and done. But it turns out that I have run at least one marathon every year since 1992. I wasn't one and done, but my first 3 marathons were all New York City marathons, just one a year. And then that third year, I ended up doing 3 in 3 months and realizing that, I could do more than one in a year. So that's how it started. And then I finally qualified for Boston on like my 16th marathon at Grandma's in Minnesota. And I was 39 years old and had to run sub 3:15. And I kept getting close, but then just falling short at the end. And I realized that to run a 3:15, you have to be in shape to run about a 3:05. And so I got in good enough shape and did that. And after Boston, I was like, well, what's next? I've done the marathon and just stumbled into ultra marathons. Didn't really know anything about them. Didn't know that people ran farther than 26.2 miles. And once I did that, I'm like, hey, people walk in these. This is a lot more fun. So since 2000, I've really concentrated on ultras and have run about 50 100s, and I really have lost count somewhere in the 30s, and just started just enjoying the adventure of it much more than having any strict time goals. And that's why I was so excited to be on your podcast, because focusing on aging runners and the way that my running addiction has gone. I focused for so long on everything. 100 miles had to be sub 24, had to be sub 24. And then I decided to focus on just finishing. If I signed up, I wanted to finish, because I had lost speed, and mostly I'd lost the desire to try to run fast. I was just enjoying running some, hiking some, running some. And so that really had more to do with it than anything. And that's kind of how I positioned. And that's certainly where I was at in 2019 when I did that podcast with Mark Holbert, the running anthropologist. I thought that anything of and having to do with serious training was gone from inside me. And I figure I found out that differently this year when I decided I was going to try um, the uh, it wasn't Cocodona. Moab 2.
Moab. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Moab. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
Moab. I had done the
I was just seeing if you were
yeah,
demented or not.
yeah, no. Well, I had to think about it. I had done the 240-mile lollipop, which what a great event, what a great adventure that was, because it was a total solo effort, starting in the Atlantic Ocean, 62 miles through the swamps to Lake Okeechobee, 118 miles around Lake Okeechobee, and 62 miles back. But that was truly just a hiking, jogging adventure, and that was stress related. I'd had a stroke probably 6 months before that, and just was so much stress in my life. And so I started just going out at whenever I was battling insomnia, and I'd go out at 10 p.m., midnight, 2 a.m., whatever, whenever my sleep was broken, and I'd just start hiking. And when I saw people start talking about the lollipop, there was nothing that I had done running wise saying that I should be able to complete a 240-mile adventure, except that I was just exercising all the time. And some people, we all have gifts, and some of our gifts work against us too. But my gift is I'm pretty doggone tough. I'm like an old boot, just there's not much you can do to permanently harm me. And that served me well. And I was so shocked when I went and did that, because for 225 miles, I felt really good. And then the last 15 miles, oh my gosh, the last 15 miles probably took me 20 hours, because I was all bent over and everything. Um, and that was 2 years ago that I did that lollipop. And at the time it was an FKT. But then when people saw that, hey, this old man did it, a couple of youngsters went out and significantly lowered that FKT. And I did not take offense at that, because I got into 100 milers because a friend of mine, Dan Miller, was talking about the Vermont 100. And I'm like, well, if that guy can run 100 miles, I can do it. And it turns out I could. So if I inspired a couple of people, then that's great. I'm glad I did, and they were right. If this old man could do it, then somebody younger and fitter could do it too. And I'm excited that my FKT has been lowered a couple of times since then. But it was cool to be kind of a pioneer for that. So when I decided to do Moab, uh, I did not want that pain again that I had in the lollipop. So I actually trained. I hired a coach who is a Facebook friend of yours, Lisa Smith Batchen. She's our age also, and she's very accomplished athlete and accomplished coach. She has students all over the country, and I actually listened to her. I did what she said to do, and when I went out to Moab in October, I was fit, and I was largely plant based at that time. I went 4 months without a sip of alcohol. I mean, I've never had a drinking problem, but I like to have a drink pretty much every night or every other night. And then on Sundays at Buccaneer football games, I probably overdo it a little bit. But I didn't have not a sip of alcohol for like 4 months. I was almost entirely plant based. I was eating a very healthy diet, but I was not overeating. I wasn't snacking. And because I just wasn't going to spend all that money and bring my family out there to not giving it everything I had. And so I discovered, and Lisa had told me this, that, I could do more than I was doing. I didn't have to just accept being at the back of the pack. If I could really train, and I really did train. And the training was hard for the first time in years. For the first time in years, I actually, put out effort when I was tired and training. I didn't uh, just start walking just for because I just didn't feel like running anymore. I really pushed it, and it did not happen overnight. So if you're looking for an overnight success, then don't talk to me, and don't and don't hire Lisa as your coach. But if you want to get into a process and trust it, I went out to Moab and I knew I could finish. I knew, I had been hiking mountains and all that. No, I didn't finish because it's not all physical. So much of ultra running, Jamie, as you know, is mental. I mean, you can run through mud, but when you kept seeing it at long haul, it had to discourage you. By the way, the course is absolutely perfect right now. I'm not wood.
Sure, sure. I don't,
There's not.
wait, don't even talk about it, Andy. Go ahead.
Yeah, we we cut out one of the spurs for this year just because it's not muddy now, but I know people are going to be having flashbacks when they get out there. They're going to. So we're moving aid station 2, so you won't have to go through where that mud was, even though it's not there this year. So anyway, I trained with more intensity at 62 years old. I lost 40 pounds, and I didn't do it overnight. I lost no more than 2 pounds in any week, but I just trusted the process getting out there. And so, if you're losing a pound and a half a week, in 10 weeks, that's 15 pounds, right? In 20 weeks, that's 30 pounds. So I really did myself so many favors, and it was actually fun again. Uh, I enjoyed the process, pulling tires, wearing weight vests, um, and I'd get a workout. At least I can't do this. Yes, you can. Just give it a try. And so the training, it's like two things that I didn't want to hear. Giving up alcohol really helped my performance, and training with intensity and with a plan really helped too. And I did not think that at 62 and now 63, I didn't think I could still do things that I was doing at 45 and even at 50. I mean, like my 100-mile PR I set at age 50, which a lot of people do, but that's because that's when they run their first one. No, I had been running 100 milers for 11 years at that point, but still set my 100-mile um, PR at age 50. It's my only sub 20 hour, and it was not an easy day and not an easy course. I just, you know, for that race, I did some really good training too. I did course specific. I mirrored the course, what I was doing. Uh, the conditions on race day were, wind and rain and all kinds of stuff, but I just kept going. So, some people look at 40 as old, some people look at 50 as old, some people look at 60 as old. Um, I'm 63 and I feel like I did when I was 50. Um, that just shedding the weight and training with a purpose helped me. Now, I was fine just jogging and hiking, what I call joking. Take the JO from jog, HIK, the KE from hike, and you get joke. So I was joking, and I was happy doing it. But adding that intensity, really, like I said, when I went to Moab, I knew I could finish, but I hadn't really um, experienced what the sleep deprivation does to a person. When I was at the Lollipop, when I got really tired, I could sleep as long as I want because there was no time limit. At Moab, there was a time limit, and I was never in danger of being timed out, but I just didn't get enough sleep. And I got really stupid with sleep deprivation and made the decision to drop because I had a 17-mile downhill and I was afraid I was going to fall off the mountain or, get lost or whatever. I just wasn't thinking correctly. If I'd have gotten an hour and a half of sleep, then I probably would have been excited about running a 17-mile downhill because I love to run downhill. But my race ended at mile 126, which, everybody told me was great. And it was because, Florida guy, I've lived in Florida my whole life so far. And there were mountains, there was desert. It was I had done all the climbs in training because about I spent 2 solid weeks on the race course out there, and I also went to Colorado and I went to Washington State to climb mountains, but I hadn't done all day. So I got out, and it was just really hard. The hardest climb came when I'd already run 100 miles, and with a couple hours of sleep, I probably would have been a lot fresher, but Uh, this until you experience it, it's people can tell you sleep deprivation is your biggest enemy. You have to sleep. But I kept thinking about I got to make the time cutoff. I got to make the time cutoff. But now I know that time cutoff doesn't matter if you're not well rested, then you're not going to make it anyway. And you're also putting yourself in danger because I was bumping into things and falling down, even though my legs were fine. My mind was not. Um, so
I, I did I watched you through that, and of course elevation. If
yeah,
any to pull it up, you can pull up. I'll put a link to the race, but it does. I mean, the worst
mhm,
part of it starts after 100 miles, so
yeah,
it's not like I got it made and all I got to do is get back. It was real, and I think lot of my listeners are probably scratching their head and it's like, wait a minute. What because they even ask me 100 miles do you sleep, and you're talking now, it's 240, right? Moab is
yeah.
240.
240, yes.
240. So, you have in the cut is it the are you allowed 90 hours, 91 hours?
No, that one gives you 117 hours.
117 hours, but
117 hours, yeah.
the
Uh,
clock is always running, and if so people try to
they
sleep.
yeah, they have
um
four sleep stations set up on the course, and I just I did not take as much advantage of them as I should have, and so I knew that when after reflecting for a couple of days, and also the altitude got me. The first day, we live at sea level, right, and I was fine doing one hike a day, but just it really got me the first day particularly. I just but I kind of adjusted to that, and I think with sleep I would have been fine. So I knew that when I started the 200 across Florida that I was gonna need some sleep. Now doing the virtual across Florida 200, which sadly they're phasing out in favor of a single day event. Starts someday in November now, but they had the thing where you could sign up and then you can go out whenever you want, take as much time as you want. So when I started, I decided on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving that I was going to go the Friday after Thanksgiving. So I had all of a day and a half to prepare before my Black Friday start.
mhm.
But it's not like I was chomping at the bit to do another 200 because I'd done all that training for Moab. I knew that physically I was ready. Um, you know, After almost all my hundreds, I can't walk for a couple of days. When I dropped at Moab, I was hiking the next day. I was hiking the mountains the next day. So I knew physically I was in pretty darn good shape. So it wasn't just a very rash decision. Unlike when I did the lollipop, that was kind of a stress reliever deal. This was, I just want to use this training, and I've been wanting to do across Florida um, 200 for about 3 years, ever since my friends Lucian and Richard did it. They were like the first to really embrace that virtual race. And I went out and ran 55 miles with them or so, and had a blast, and was just amazed that, 130, 140 miles in, they were still running. And I just like, wow. Uh, so when I went this time, I knew I could still be running. I did not know that I would be able to run the whole thing. I did not know I wouldn't be all bent over. But the training that I put in, it was almost, it was really weird because I never had the adversity to overcome. It was, training directed. I learned so much at Moab. I knew that I had to get some sleep. So at 62 miles, I slept for a couple hours. At uh, maybe 110 miles, I slept for a couple hours. At 160 miles, I slept for 3 hours. So I had some planned sleep, and if I needed 20 minutes here or there, then I took the 20 minutes here or there. So you know, um, it's just like life. Um, and maintenance, if you don't take care of yourself as you're going, you're headed for a big crash. And so I did take care of myself here and here and here, and it added up to a really great experience. Now, it was a great experience because, I was very well trained for it, and that was something that was so different for me. um, uh, my friend Lucian, hot chocolate, ooh wee, shout out. Um, he always says, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And that's true to an extent. But if you're doing something like that, I think it's so important to put yourself through those kind of conditions. Like, how do you expect to run through 3 nights if you haven't ever done a run that takes you through the night? So, my training, I always like to do a 10 or 12-hour night run. Granted, it's a lot easier for an old male than it is for a young female, just because the cold hard reality is nobody messes with me. I mean, I'm just I'm sure I look like just a homeless dude when I'm out there wandering around. I mean, I even had, police stop me when I was out running, and I'm like, hey man, I'm just out training. And
Sure you are.
he's like, yeah, you're fine. I just wanted to make sure you were all right. And I'm like, yep, I'm fine. Thanks for your concern, officer. Where somebody of color or a young female, those might be very scary incidents, and I probably should be more scared than I am, but I, I don't know, since I've never had any issues. But what I would encourage is to do a group run. I've hosted group runs from my house and up at Croom overnight, and that's always, if you're training for something, look for an opportunity to do an overnight run if your run is going to have you go overnight. So that would be some advice that I would give for that. I've been talking a lot, Jamie. I'll let you.
Well, so the 200 across Florida, that was part of you did that as part of the Florida adventure racing people, correct?
That was the Warrior Group out of Georgia. They put that on, and it's going to be, like I said, next November. It's going to be a single event with a 96-hour cutoff. But because they couldn't get permits in previous years, they just threw it open as a virtual thing, and it was pretty darn cheap. It was between $100 and $150, and they'd send you the coordinates. And then if you finished and you have to provide proof of that finish, then you get a huge, absolutely huge belt buckle. And if anybody wants to look at Andy Croom on Facebook, my profile picture has that buckle in it. It's a very cool buckle.
Looks like about a 5x7.
Yeah, so worth the price of admission, and just a wonderful challenge. And so, they provide you with the map, and that's pretty much it. And you have to follow that map, and you have to be able to prove you did it. And I was lucky that I have a very good friend, Dawn Sullivan, and she had the week off of work. So I said, hey man, what are you doing the next 5 days? And she's like, nothing. And I'm like, could you crew for me? And fortunately she said yes. And she has a nice big Ford Explorer with heated seats. So, that was one of those fluke Florida weeks that was, the lows were in the 30s, and it never got above about 65 degrees during the day. So for me, that's great. I love cold weather running. I've lived in Florida my whole life, but I doesn't mean I like the heat. I do not like the heat. Um, and anyway, so the weather was perfect, in my opinion, for that. But I certainly was happy to have the front seat of her car in a heated seat rather than trying to sleep in the dirt in the cold.
So she crewed you, and you would run point to point. It came out at some of the, I saw there is actually a documentary out there. I don't know, I can't remember the guys that did it. I watched it.
Michael Alberts and Matt Clapper, yeah, two good
Yeah,
friends.
Yeah. So that's the same course.
Same course, yes. Yeah.
They did there was, I guess, just kind of a shortened version of it. But yeah, you were moving.
I was so happy. It's so funny because in my mind I was running like a Kenyan, and I saw some of the videos, and I'm like, oh my god, I look like just a decrepit old man out there. But I'll tell you what, um, it 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 just goes to show you don't have to run lightning fast. I mean, I probably averaged 18-minute miles for the whole thing, but that includes all the sleep breaks and everything.
Yeah, that was good. I mean, that was
Yeah,
really,
I
really good.
mean,
I
I
didn't think I
just
thought you looked good moving, you know,
well,
and
thank you so much. But, it definitely didn't look like I did when I was 40, but I appreciated every step 40 times more than I did when I was 40. In those days, um, like I said, I quit races. Um, I quit Vermont 85 miles in because I was going to break 24 hours. And that's, if you're signing, I don't know. Now I sign up for the adventure, and I definitely want to finish, and I want to do well, but it's it's about the adventure. It's about the finish much more than it is about the clock. Uh, I'm still I kick myself, but it's part of the learning process, I guess. But I still kick myself because I have at least 3 drops. That the only reason I dropped is because I wasn't going to break 24 hours in a 100-mile race, and it's just I'm not that person anymore. I enjoy who I am now very much. I enjoy um, I enjoy just how difficult it is solving the puzzle. Everything's a puzzle, and when I can solve that puzzle and overcome any kind of adversity and just keep moving, it's it's a great feeling. And I wouldn't even wear a watch except I love looking at the stats afterwards. But like when I was going across Florida, I probably went 40 miles without looking at my watch once. I didn't know what pace I was going. I knew I was giving it what I needed to give it. When I started out, at the beginning, I was so happy with myself. I ran the first 5 miles in just right almost exactly an hour, 12-minute miles, which, if you're, that's a, was way faster than my goal times. But after that first 5 mile section, then I probably looked at my watch when it would beep. It beeps every time I ran a mile. I'd look at it. And then after about mile 40, I probably didn't look at my watch again for about 40 miles or so. I just was going by feel. Um, I was doing what I felt like I needed to. I was never running so fast that I was out of breath, but I didn't just flat out walk and walk and walk either. When there was a good time to run and I felt good, I ran. When there was tricky terrain, which I used to just fly over technical terrain. Well, now, as we get older, falls are they're scarier than they used to be. And I only fell once in that entire 200 miles, and it was in Marshall Swamp. And that sounds kind of like it might be a swamp, doesn't it?
yes.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
And I fell on my knees and rolled over on my back and just landed right in that muddy swamp water. And I just sat there and I'm like, oh, this is terrible. But fortunately, there was a bench and I sat on that bench and I'm like, all right, is this a fall that's going to knock me out, or uh, is it just, was it a wake up call? And it was getting to be, like 3 o'clock in the morning. So I knew I was tired too. And it turns out that was just the only thing that fall did to me was wake me up a little and get me dirty. Um, no, a little blood, but nothing that bad. And that was the only fall I had. And, you know, I was just, it was in a swamp. So it's totally forgivable to fall when you can't, when you can't even see the ground under you because you're sloshing through water and you hit a rock or whatever. So that was my only fall in there. So, but I took it easy on really technical terrain because I knew that I felt like I was in good enough shape where if something like a fall didn't take me out, that I would be able to complete that race. Uh, I did have a time goal, and there wasn't a time limit, but my time goal was 84 hours. That's what I put in my mind because I'm doing the Cowboy 200 in September. It's in Nebraska. Two wonderful race directors that remind me of younger versions of Amy and I. They're Chase and Casey Hammond, and they have a series of races in the Midwest. One of them is that Cowboy 200. I volunteered out there for them last September. Just really cool people, and they care about their runners. And it's like I said, it's like a younger version of Amy and I, because you can tell they're not doing that for the money. Amy and I aren't doing it for the money. We hear the greatest stories from finishers like yourself, people running their first 100 milers, and when I was out at Cross Florida, a gentleman, I don't know, I'll just call him John because that's his name. John came out and ran through the night with me from 11 at night until 9 in the morning. In the middle of the forest, he drove a good 3 hours to get to me, and he said, when I saw you were doing this, I had to come out. He goes, because you changed my life. You were my first ultra. And he goes, you talked to me, and you cared about my story. And I'm like, well, John, I don't really remember that. And he goes, well, you had to talk to a lot of people that day. He goes, but he goes, and you were there when I finished. And he said, you really meant something. And he goes, I wanted to pay back. Well, he more than paid back. He got me through the Callan National Forest, my last full night in the forest, and just wonderful to know that I had a positive impact on somebody's life. That's why Amy and I do the races. That's why we put them on, because we want to have a positive impact. And we hear so many great stories. My very favorite picture in the world is me giving Maureen Mo Hogan a hug when she finished her 100 miler. She was in tears. I was not in tears because I don't have any emotions. I'm like a sociopath. I do not cry. She might argue that. My wife would certainly argue that, but it's one of my very favorite pictures because I gave her a moment that she'll never forget, and she certainly gave me one. So
That's really good. And so in that time was 77 hours and 11 minutes that you did.
yeah, so yeah, I smashed the 84-hour goal, and then that was like mandatory. I'm like, I have to do 84 hours because that's what the cutoff is on Cowboy. But I really wanted to do sub 80 because I wanted some cushion in there. Because I'm like, if I can get 4 hours under, that means 4 hours more of sleep that I can do. So not only did I go sub 80, I went 77, and I did not know that I did. I did not know. I was Bobby Joe Derrick, a wonderful lady from Central Florida. She came out and ran the last 20 miles with me. She didn't run a step. She power walked, but she was power walking 16:30s, and I was having to jog. I was doing my jogging and hiking, and I had no idea we were going that fast. I didn't look at my watch once. I told Amy that we were going to finish 3:30 at the absolute earliest, anywhere from 3:30 to 5:30. We were like 2 miles out. She goes, we're going to smash. We're going to go way under that 3:30. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? She goes, Andy, it's only 2 o'clock and we only have two miles left. And I'm like, oh man. And I had no idea because time wasn't important. What was important was to keep moving and feel like I was doing well. I really thought, I didn't think there was a chance I would do better than 21, 22-minute miles. Again, younger, fast people are going to 21, 22-minute miles. That's not even running. But it is, heck, it's 200 miles. And
yes, right. It's 200
miles. And that's what I was shooting for. I thought my best possible scenario was 20-minute miles. I never dreamed that I would be 3.5 minutes a mile faster than that. So that was the only drawback, is that I actually beat Amy to the finish. She got there about 20 minutes after I finished. Part of me wanted to slow down, but here's the thing. I kept waiting to fall apart. And I was thinking, if I stop or if I slow down, then I don't know what's going to happen. And right now I feel good, so let's keep going. So that's what I did, and I'm glad I did. I would have loved to have been a better prognosticator and been able to tell her exactly when I was going to be able to finish, but I did not foresee a scenario where I finished before 3:30. Just didn't think it was going to happen. Um, but that's where my coach, Lisa Smith Batchin, was absolutely correct. I was capable of so much more at my advanced age than I thought was possible. Now, part of it is that I'd already run the sub 24s. I'd already done a 240. Um, and so, my desire to train for it wasn't as great. But then when I took on the Moab challenge, I understood that what I was doing previously was not going to work for a mountain 240-mile race. So I knew that to do that, I was going to have to change um, how I thought about it, and also change my body. I used to say when I was in my 40s and even early 50s, I used to say I was in the best shape in the world. And then as I hit about 56, I said, now I'm the shape of the world. And like I said, going largely plant based, giving up alcohol, and looking at it, shifting my paradigm, looking at it a different way, understanding that I did not have to accept things as I had been, that I should try to push myself a little. And the process absolutely worked. And I don't know that it can work for everybody, but I certainly did not know would work for me. And it did. And I can't wait for the next adventure. Shoot, it's only been a couple of weeks since Cross Florida. I'm doing Ancient Oaks this weekend, which is it's a deceivingly hard little 100-miler in Titusville and a three and a half.
Little 100-miler.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see how that goes. Now I might make it 20 miles, and my legs will say, "Hey, you idiot! You're 63 years old and you just ran a 200. What are you doing?" Um, eh, or I really feel like I'll be able to finish that, and I'm gonna give it a good effort. I'm not gonna just go out there just for a training run. But my big one, next one, is the Lost 118, self-supported. I'll be pushing a runner-propelled cart with all my supplies that I need in it, so I won't need any crew or anything, and do that 118 miles around the lake, just me and my cart. And I love the loneliness of the long distance runner, the solitude. Um, when I train, I listen to books and podcasts. I'm not so much a music guy, but I love to listen to my books. Um, and I train with that every day. But like during the Cross Florida, I listen to my book for the first 5 miles and then not again the entire time. And that's probably what I'll do at Lost to the Lake Okeechobee Scenic Trail. I'll probably maybe listen a little bit at the beginning, but then just enjoy the taking in all the sights and sounds, and just enjoying that and not needing the outside distraction. So that's my next one that I'm really pointing at is Lost. I'm looking forward to that very much.
So it's very exciting to hear what you have planned. And for the people that didn't have the opportunity to go back and listen to the podcast that you were on in 2019, I'd like to bring up a few points that
Awesome.
that you said at age 59. It was funny. I was listening to it today and I was chuckling because, having followed you on these last races and hearing you talk and some of the things you've written, I was laughing because at 59, you were basically, it was your exit. You're talking about your exit strategy.
Right.
And that, you've done everything you needed to do. You might have a couple hundreds left in you, but marathons are probably going to be, don't just say marathon because that's 26. That means something, but
you're darn right it does.
Probably what I'm going to do and just enjoy life, and everything will be okay. And you said maybe you were going to start a podcast called You Can't Do That, or You're Too Old for That. I can't remember which one that was.
At your age.
At your
Yeah.
age, at your
Yeah.
age, you shouldn't
I
be
know.
doing
I
that.
still I still think about that. Yeah.
I think that's something that we should do as at your age. I think that you and I could do that podcast together and have people on at your age. Can you
I
believe
love it.
we did
I
this?
would love to do it. I mean, I bought the microphone and the
Got everything
headphones
where
and all that.
I think it's meant to be, to tell you the truth, because I thought that is a fabulous name for a podcast, and it's really what I'm all about. I work with Susan Donnelly, and I think you probably met her
I
along the
talked to her quite a bit at Daytona this weekend. Yeah.
and she, I
We've
talked to
become
her
fast
about
friends.
being 62 years old running, and my goal race, long haul, and then I want to head to Leadville. Unfortunately I got injured at long haul, not unlike you didn't get injured back when at long haul.
Right.
Some sort of ankle tendonitis that has basically taken me till just about now to kind of get all the way over. But nevertheless, I've had to play with that. Oh, can you get over that mountain at 62? Are you supposed to be doing this at 62? Is it a possible, why are, I look at the race results on Ultra Sign Up to see how many people my age are there, how many people are left alive, so to speak, and hang on to the Bob Beckers and the
There
different
you
people.
go.
But she talks about, you write your own, you write, you jump in your own pool and you get to write your own story. And it's yours to write. It's not been written before. And, to go do the Cowboy 200, you're writing your story.
I
And
am
that's
so
how it.
glad I did not know the end of my story, and I still don't know it. I mean, I don't know what else is out there that I'll do. There are things that I now want to do again that I thought were in my rearview mirror.
What happened now? So at 59, you had a comeback from plantar fasciitis
Sure.
took you down for a little bit.
Yeah.
And you came back, but that was about it. You had about a year coming back from that long haul injury, right?
Yeah. I sure did.
Yeah.
And it seems like forever when you're rehabbing. It seems like, oh my gosh, but as you know, with our experience, 8 months is not a lifetime. If you do what you're supposed to do and take care of yourself, it, you can come back, and it's really hard when you come back. But you gotta forgive yourself, and you gotta look at the new you, like you were saying. Susan talks about. You got to look at the new you. It doesn't matter what you think you should be able to do. It's what you should do, and you don't, and then it's a progression. And couldn't be happier about the way it is turning out. And you know, leading up to this across Florida, um, I went to do the lost cart division last year and did not make the cutoff at the 100K. Now it was a aggressive cutoff for pushing a cart, but it didn't so much matter because I knew I was in good enough shape to finish it. Um, I y- y- I was more concerned with the progress than any interim results. I knew I was making progress, um, and that's why I just couldn't be happier with the way that cross Florida turned out. Just like I said, I had no idea what my time was until I was coming into the parking lot to go to the pier to finish. I couldn't have told you within an hour of what my time was. And the only reason I knew is because Dawn and Bobby Joe said, hey, you wanted to do 80, 82 hours, and you're gonna break 78. And I'm like, I am. And they're like, yeah, you're looking at 77 hours. And I'm like, it's so, I mean, when you're talking about those kind of that much time, it doesn't probably doesn't make that much difference. But none of the time goals made any difference. What made a difference was keeping moving, getting from point A all the way across the coast to point B, and feeling good while I was doing it. Now, um, if I would have been all hunched over and bent like I was at the lollipop, I was going to drop. I had no interest in feeling that kind of pain again. Now, it's a different story if you got 5 miles left, something like that. Yeah, I could put up with with pain for that. But happily, that didn't happen. And so, it's so, I like being in that, having that, that feeling and that knowledge, like I know I can do this. Uh, I don't know that I will do it, but I know that I can. Like at Moab, I knew that I could do it. The climbs weren't too hard. The altitude wasn't too much. I just made a bad error in the sleep. I needed more sleep. I didn't get that sleep. It knocked me out. I knew that going into Lollipop. If I'd had that same, if I'd had that same sleep deprivation at across Florida, I would not have been successful. But I made sure that that wasn't the case. I knew that that's something I had to take care of. I knew I had to take care of my feet. I changed socks 3 times during that 200 mile. That may not sound like a lot, but um, it takes time to do that. And if you don't if you don't take care of the little things, then they will take care of you and they will knock you out. And so the big
I know.
thing is to get in shape. But then once you do get in shape, you gotta be smart. So you can overcome a lot when you're young. You can make some mental mistakes and still finish. At our age, you have to have a good day and you have to be smart. And I enjoy that problem solving. And that's what Moab was. Moab showed me some of the potential problems that would come up. And so I was what a great learning experience. It was worth everything I paid to go out there just to learn the lessons that I learned, and I had a good time too. I really did, and I was proud of myself for doing 126 in that. But I know I could have done better, and I do plan to go back at some point and give it another go.
Well, I look forward to seeing you again at Long Haul 100.
Hee hee,
Uh,
you will love it. It's I'm
I,
gonna.
I have a plan for the mud. It was pretty funny.
We're putting the tarps out now. We're going to make
They're
sure they don't
putting
get
up
any
red
more rain.
carpets and tarps and all this other kind. I tell you what, I was the biggest thing that scared me on that race is I have that book Fix Your Feet,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing the pictures of people's feet fall, peeling off basically, and I was scared to death about that, and I used the salty britches stuff and changed my socks, and I never got a blister the whole thing.
That's fantastic. I didn't get a
Yeah,
single blister going across Florida, and that went through a swamp and
wow.
some other things.
So,
So
so if you take care of things, it does work out. But what I didn't believe you when you said it was going to be that muddy. And I being I was an inex I'm in an I am an inexperienced trail runner. I've run that was my first 100, run a few 50s, Brazos, Bends, in Texas and things like that. So
yeah,
never in really awful terrain. It's been dry every place else I ran, and so I was kind of trying to tiptoe through the mud there. Probably the tiptoeing through the mud and picking my path was probably what got me injured, actually. And of course, by the last loop, it was like just go straight through. The
just
funniest
go
part was
straight there. Yeah.
my pacer and I, the fifth loop, our lights went out. And so we had like one dim headlight between the two of us. And of course, that meant we went just straight through. And it's like, this
Mm,
is much better.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so I'm ready. I'm ready. Susan asked me, it's like, what are you going to do if it's muddy? And it's like, I'm ready. I'm going straight through. I'm not intimidated by
And
this time. And bring it on. I don't
we
care what
will
the weather
not
is.
have that level of mud again. I mean, right now the course is absolutely perfect. Um, of course, it was just several days of rain leading up to that race where it just kept getting worse and worse. Um, but that was unprecedented. It surprised the park people too. Um, and I really,
Well,
it's supposed to be a dry winter this year. So well, let's hope it is, because that course is lightning fast and it's beautiful and so runnable on a regular basis. That was an anomaly. And that's
is
not that's not just race director BS. That's absolutely true, because we do the Colt 45 out there too, and we've never had any mud issues. There's been a little water on the course, but just a little bit. And right now, even after 2 hurricanes, that course is perfect. So
Very nice. And do you still have the furlong? Is that furlong
yes,
closed?
the
Is it
furlong's 12.5 miles.
is
A
it still
fur-
open or is it closed?
no, it's still open. Yeah.
Still open. So people that want to go and dip your
Yeah.
foot into running trails, it's a great,
Yeah, and
great.
I would also say if anybody really wants to run the race, contact us. The wait list is closed, but we we have a lot of first timers that run that race, and so we do get a lot of people that will drop out that last month. So it would not shock me if a few more spaces opened up. Wouldn't shock me. Now I can't swear that that will happen, but there's a likelihood we'll get another 10 runners or so in.
Well, there's certainly a bond that I must say that you form with the guy that meets you at the finish line of 100.
Ah,
And it was so good to see you, and
thank
so,
you
so
so much.
and you and Amy do such a great job, and you're
Oh,
so
thank
warm
you.
and welcoming to everybody. And I appreciate all you do. It truly was a life-changing
Oh
experience.
man,
Done
that's
Ironmans and things like that, but I'm
great.
hooked on it, and so we can't wait to see you in
Yeah,
January.
if people had any idea the work that my wife Amy puts into this, they would. They're like, that you're probably making 30 cents an hour, and but hey, her other job is a school teacher too, so she's used to being underpaid
Is
and overworked. So,
well,
um,
well,
but
we appreciate you,
oh,
and
thank you so much.
thanks for taking the time, and I'm glad that you're doing well. And again, anytime I love a
Uh,
good comeback. I
well, we
love a
need to get
good.
in touch with the At Your Age because I've been wanting to do that, and I've been looking for a partner. I don't want to do it by myself. I've got some great, you mentioned Bob Becker. He would be one of the very first guests I would have on. He'll
Yes.
be 80 years old in April, and he's a world record holder, and he's also, to me, would have the world record for just being a good guy. He'd
Oh,
be,
he is just,
yeah,
he is just the greatest. I
yeah,
ran with him a little bit at long haul, and it's like he's just a little bunny that's just out there hopping along the trail
yeah,
as happy as can be.
yeah.
And so yeah, I think we should look into that.
I do too. I do too. Well, thank you so much for letting
All
me
right.
pontificate.
Good. Well, congratulations on everything, and I'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Jamie.
Take care. Bye bye.
All right.
Well, I hoped you enjoyed that interview with Andy. The problem is Andy just doesn't like to talk, and it's hard to get him to start talking. Maybe a little harder to get him to stop, but I enjoyed every second of it. And who knows, we might have a second podcast at your age. You can send us people you'd like us to interview if you would. But thank you again for listening. If you'd like to know more about our practice at our age, contact me at Jami, Jami, at drdulaney.com. Check out the website, drdulaney.com. You can check out Andy on Facebook, Long Haul 100, Ultra Sign Up. Again, we enjoyed the time together. Thank you as always for listening. I hope your holidays are merry and bright and you have a happy new year. And I'll be checking with you after old St. Nick goes back to the North Pole. Get your run in. Be happy. See you soon.